Yo, listen. Sometimes one actor leaving a television show changes everything so completely that the series almost becomes a different emotional universe afterward. Nah, for real. Not because the remaining cast suddenly becomes bad or the writing collapses instantly, but because certain relationships are so central to the identity of a show that once they disappear, the entire rhythm, atmosphere, and emotional structure transforms permanently. And honestly, that is exactly what happened to All in the Family when Rob started leaving the series. Because, once Meathead faded away, television lost one of the greatest ideological rivalries ever created. And now, for real, the entire emotional soul of the show changed afterward. Welcome back, everybody. And today we are diving deep into how All in the Family transformed after Rob's departure and why the later years became emotionally different in ways many viewers did not fully appreciate at the time. Because trust me, this was not simply a cast change. This was a legendary television series, entering a completely new phase of its identity. Now check this out, because before we talk about what changed, we first have to understand exactly how important Michael really was to the original success of the series. Michael was not just Archie Bunker's son-in-law. He was Archie's emotional opposite in almost every possible way. Young versus old. Progressive versus conservative. College-educated versus working-class instinct. Optimistic versus cynical. Idealistic versus emotionally defensive. Every argument between them felt like America fighting with itself directly. That chemistry became the engine powering the first 5 seasons. And now, for real, one of my biggest hot takes is this. Archie versus Meathead may still be the greatest long-term ideological rivalry in television history, because neither man ever fully defeated the other emotionally. That tension kept everything alive. Now let us talk about why the dynamic worked so perfectly, because and Rob balanced each other beautifully. Archie exploded emotionally. Michael provoked intellectually. Archie attacked emotionally. Michael responded morally. The arguments felt real because both men carried pride, insecurity, and stubbornness constantly underneath their politics. Neither knew how to back down. And listen, that emotional realism mattered enormously. These were not sitcom arguments built around easy punchlines only. They felt messy, personal, exhausting, and painfully familiar. Audiences recognized their own families inside the chaos. That authenticity made the series revolutionary. And now, for real, once Rob started leaving the show, the emotional ecosystem changed immediately. Now check this out, because one of the things Norman Lear did was refusing to replace Michael with some fake, new meathead character artificially. A lesser sitcom, absolutely, would have introduced another young liberal opponent for Archie instantly. But Lear understood something important. You cannot recreate emotional lightning mechanically. Instead, the show allowed the absence itself to become part of the storytelling. That honesty changed everything. Another huge reason the series transformed after left is because Archie suddenly lost the person defining much of his daily emotional energy. Think about it. For years, Archie woke up every day ready for ideological war inside his own house. Michael gave him somebody to attack, argue with, blame, and resist constantly. Without Meathead, their Archie increasingly turned inward emotionally. And now, for real, One of my biggest opinions is that later-era Archie becomes more psychologically fascinating precisely because the shouting starts fading away. Now audiences begin noticing loneliness, fear, aging, and emotional uncertainty underneath the anger more clearly. That evolution deepened the character enormously. Another fascinating thing about leaving is how it affected Gloria too. Yo, Sally spent years playing the emotional bridge between Archie and Michael. Gloria loved both men while constantly surviving their endless ideological battles. Once Michael begins disappearing, Gloria's role changes naturally too. The emotional triangle holding the household together weakens. That instability affects the entire atmosphere of the series. And now, for real, the house itself starts feeling quieter, older, and more emotionally fragile afterward. Another huge hot take. I honestly think the post-years accidentally transformed All in the Family from political warfare comedy into emotional aging drama disguised as a sitcom. Seriously, earlier years captured America screaming at itself. Later years explored what happened emotionally after the shouting started fading away. That shift gives the later seasons unique power. Now let us talk about because Gene becomes even more essential once leaves. Earlier seasons often buried Archie and its relationship underneath constant Archie versus Meathead conflict. Later seasons reveal something deeper. Archie emotionally depends on far more than he understands himself. Without Michael dominating the emotional energy of the household, audiences suddenly focus more directly on the marriage itself. That transition becomes incredibly important. And now, for real, one of the things about the later years is how they quietly expose Archie's vulnerability through his increasing dependence on emotional stability. Another reason the series changed so dramatically after Rob left is packing. Earlier seasons thrived on explosive confrontation. Scenes moved with constant argumentative energy. Afterward, the storytelling slows slightly. More pauses, more quiet moments, more emotional reflection. That tonal evolution feels surprisingly modern now, honestly. One of my biggest opinions is that contemporary audiences may actually appreciate later All in the Family more than some original viewers, because modern television fans are more comfortable with character-driven introspection and transitional storytelling. Back then, many viewers simply missed the old fireworks immediately. Which makes sense, obviously. Archie and Meathead created television magic together. And listen, that chemistry truly was irreplaceable. Another huge reason the show evolved is because the cultural mood of America itself changed during the late 1970s. Earlier seasons captured intense social revolution directly. By the time Roll faded, the country increasingly felt exhausted, disillusioned, and emotionally fragmented after years of conflict. All in the Family mirrors that shift naturally. The series grows more reflective because America itself grows more reflective. That realism gives the later years fascinating historical texture. And now, for real, few sitcoms before or after evolved alongside national mood this honestly. Another fascinating thing about Rob leaving is how it forced to deepen Archie emotionally beyond pure confrontation. Without Michael provoking endless ideological explosions, Archie needed more internal complexity to sustain scenes. And wow, did O deliver. Fear of irrelevance, fear of aging, fear of loneliness. These feelings increasingly surface underneath the comedy. That psychological richness becomes one of the best parts of the later seasons, honestly. Another huge hot take. I honestly think people sometimes misunderstand the post-era because they expect the series to remain frozen in its revolutionary peak forever. But real families do not stay emotionally static. Children leave. Energy changes. Households grow quieter. People age. All in the family allowed that evolution to happen naturally. That artistic honesty deserves enormous respect. Now check this out, because another reason the transition worked better than many people remember is that the larger Norman Lear universe already expanded massively by this point. The thrived independently, already influenced television history enormously. Good Times expanded representation further. All in the Family no longer needed to carry the entire social revolution alone. That freedom allowed the original series itself to become more emotionally intimate and introspective afterward. And that evolution actually enriches the overall universe. Another fascinating detail is how the post-years quietly prepare audiences emotionally for Archie Bunker's place later. You can already sense traces of future loneliness underneath Archie's routines. Without Meathead constantly distracting him through argument, Archie gradually becomes more emotionally exposed. That vulnerability makes the eventual storyline even more devastating later. And now for real, watching the transition carefully now makes the entire Archie Bunker character arc feel deeper and more tragic. Another huge opinion I have is that Rob leaving proved how emotionally brave Norman Lear actually was creatively. He could have forced endless, repetitive Archie versus liberal conflict forever because audiences loved it. Instead, he allowed the family itself to evolve realistically. That honesty changed television storytelling permanently. So when people ask how the show changed when Rob left, the answer goes far beyond cast adjustments or missing arguments. The entire emotional identity of All in the Family transformed. The house grew quieter. The packing slowed. Archie became more vulnerable, became more essential. The political warfare evolved into emotional reflection. And because the series embraced those changes, honestly, instead of faking old energy, forever the later years became far richer than many people remember. That is greatness. Tell me in the comments whether you think the show became weaker or deeper after Rob left, because honestly, I think there is a fascinating argument both ways. And drop a like if you believe Archie and Meathead still remain the greatest television rivalry ever created, because trust me, I absolutely believe that. Subscribe for more deep dives into classic television history, because we still need to explore Archie Bunker's place, the Norman Lear universe, and the episodes that transformed television forever. And remember this: when Rob left, All in the Family lost its loudest arguments, but it gained a completely different kind of emotional truth afterward.